I'm actually just south of Trinity Bellwoods Park, so right between King and Queen Street. So very, very busy area too. You know, it's social neighborhood and things like that. And when I started living there last summer to now, yeah, just it's a huge influx of people also coming to the city now that I find we didn't have in the fall. Like I said, you see all the people out in the summer that you don't know where they go in the winter, right? It's really alarming to think about it because anytime it would get like brutally cold downtown, there's a whole crowd of people that you have to think about. That I'm like, who's accounting for these people? People who don't have homes, people who aren't locked down on a lease somewhere, or they don't have like, where is your place of dwelling? Job of curbing that visual foot traffic, though. You don't see a lot of camping out anymore, and they're really putting a stop to it this year. But once again, it begs the question: where are they all going, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
I worked last summer near the Beaches neighborhood in Toronto. So if you guys know where that is, that's Kingston Road and Scarborough Road. Around there, yeah. So on the Danforth, I think it's like Queen or just around that area, there's a Motel 6, I believe, for example, that they had turned into a makeshift homeless shelter. And I was reading an article last week too, actually, about how the city overfunded those, and the cost of the homeless shelters didn't actually cover the cost of all the people that needed to live there. And now that it's hot outside, we see a lot more of those people spreading out into the streets, and it really takes over. I'd say in some places, it takes over the atmosphere of the neighborhood, and it's a tough time for them and a problem for people who just want to go about their business sometimes too. I find.
All I can say is that I had the joy of visiting Calgary for the first time recently, and it was minus 26 degrees in April, and there were more homeless people on the streets than I had ever seen. And I was at a conference that was talking about not letting homeless people have houses unless they agreed to stay sober. This is what the Premier of Calgary was saying, Premier of Alberta was saying at our conference, was we don't let people have houses unless they agree to get sober. And then I'm going out in an Uber to a restaurant in minus 26 degrees and seeing the amount of homeless people on the streets made me really love Toronto. So deal with homelessness, I was like, okay, like it could be worse. It could be a whole lot worse. But certainly the evictions of Tent City and all of that stuff was really unfortunate. And I see both sides of that. I know that as a dog owner, it was really hard to walk my dog in the park because she was like trying to beeline for like garbage and chicken bones everywhere near Tent City and Trinity Bellwoods. And that sucked. But I think it's better here. We're somewhere in between it being really bad and really perfect and ideal, euphoric, Yeah.
Well, first of all, as an architect, I'm not an expert on homeless people. We shouldn't call them homeless, right? Houseless. I don't remember what the term is. I'm sorry. I wasn't expecting this question. I don't. From what I'm seeing, I don't think that I mean, we can definitely design better places for them. But this is where it goes back to economies. It's it would be very easy to design a good place for people to live in, people who are homeless. Who's gonna pay for it? But that's not an architecture problem. That's a government problem. And my personal politics are that we should provide more of those housing, and that they need to be reasonable, and they need to be staffed by people. You can't just put people in housing and expect everything to just work out. It doesn't work that way. I know from personal experience, we were helping a person that had housing issue, and we were helping him with that. Nothing to do with the architecture, and my wife did most of that. And it's not keeping people housed is takes a lot more than just providing a roof over their head. But even just designing, even the way we design it, we set them apart, we make them look different, we make the buildings look different. It's segregation, and it's difficult because living because people who don't have housing, there's a reason. There are reasons why they find themselves segregated. It's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be difficult. So again, it goes back to what I said earlier about societal, the way society thinks about these things. We need to be able to accept people who are different from us, and we need to provide a lot more resources, so they're not so desperate.
What's really interesting is the way that parks, they seem like such innocent places, and yet we see the struggles over the inequality in resources, and it's reminiscent of the old commons issue. I mean, these are the only lands that are still in some small way up for grabs. They're supposed to be everyone's, and some people's needs are not just for a stroll in the park. Some people's needs are for somewhere to live, and so the park goes from being this kind of very, very almost innocent space to one that shows all of the kind of horrific inequalities, and even gives a space to contest those, because there are people who are saying, well, I have a right to be at the park, and what I need is to sleep. So you know but anyway, that's been interesting lately.